Good afternoon. Hi. My name is Dr. Tara Jungerson, and I'm chair of the Department of Counseling. And on behalf of Dean Karen Grosby and the College of Psychology, I'd like to welcome all of you. I know we have students, alums, faculty, and friends of the College of Psychology. We have an exciting panel today honoring Mr. Dwight Hollier as one of our alums who is a licensed professional counselor and national certified counselor. And with that, I am going to pass the mic over for some introductions and to get our panel started. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Dr. Rob Seifer, Associate Professor of Psychology, and I am a sports psychologist and work with athletes professionally, collegiately, and amateurly to help them perform at their peak as often as possible through mental tools and skills. In this function, I work consistently using techniques to modify their thoughts and goal setting to help with anxiety, relaxation, and other programs, and have the opportunity to learn from them as well along the way. At NOVA, the opportunity is wonderful as we have the sports psychology program for our doctoral students as well as undergrad students that are able to join to get experience in learning on seminars of interventions, techniques to help athletes, as well as having the doctoral students learn about presenting and even working with some of our collegiate athletes. It's a pleasure to be here at this panel, and I'm going to pass this on to Julius Thomas.
Hi, my name is Julius Thomas. I am happily retired. After 7 years of athletic career that I really enjoyed, it meant a lot to me, and I was able to have a lot of experiences. And one of the things that I thought was underserved and I didn't really know what to do with myself is kind of the things I was dealing with. And after a lot of reading and a lot of self-studying, I was really able to reach out to NOVA and start to meet some of the wonderful people we have up here and in the audience, and it really meant a lot to me. And as my interest in psychology continued to grow, I was more and more excited about having the opportunity to come back to school and really learn the best way that I could to help people. And that's created my interest in wanting to go back to school. So I'm very excited to be here at NOVA, and just finished my application for the PsyD program. So I'm really looking forward to my future.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mindy Dunnigan, and I'm an assistant professor in the counseling department here. And my area of interest is female collegiate athletes. I've actually had some opportunities to work with them, and I think that it is female athletes are a subpopulation of athletes that oftentimes get overlooked with some of the issues that they are faced with as a college student and as an athlete. Most of the times, these athletes struggle more and are susceptible more to depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and have higher levels of stress than their male athlete counterparts. So I think it's really important to be able to work with them from a wellness perspective and help them in different areas that will help their sport performance overall. And here's Dwight Hollier.
Thank you. I have a mic, so I'm going to pass this on. Dwight Hollier. I am a 2000 graduate of the Master's in Counseling program here at NOVA. And it is a real honor and treasure to be back here on campus and to be in this room, with the future and I won't say the past because that's not going to sound right, but the family, the NSU family. And I'm currently the Senior Associate Athletic Director at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill for student-athlete wellness and program outreach. And part of my role is I work on a lot of the wellness issues, so I oversee sports medicine, strength and conditioning, nutrition, and student-athlete development, as well as working on some of the programs with different sports. And prior to that, I spent 5.5 years working at the NFL as VP of Wellness and Clinical Services, where I worked on and managed a lot of the mental health initiatives for the NFL. The work is extremely important to me, and my clinical foundation was really started right here on this campus and working in the Family Violence Center. And I'm really grateful for the experiences that I had here. They've helped to shape me as a counselor, as a clinician, and it's helped to serve the individuals that I've been able to touch in the 18 years that I've been in the field. So just really thankful for the opportunity to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Hi, I'm Jamie Tartar. I'm a professor of the Behavioral Neuroscience program. We are not in the Maltz building. We're in historic Nova on the other side in the Parker building. I'm happy to report that the entire Behavioral Neuroscience department is here tonight. So my background is in the neurobiology of stress and the neurobiology of sleep, but for the last 4 years I've been collaborating with some exercise scientists, trying to figure out that connection between the brain and athletic performance, and between the brain and exercise. So we've done a lot of really cool studies looking at how genetic differences can contribute to individual differences in sports performance, doing some research on the athletic gene and sports performance, on genes that are associated with fat mass and how that might affect athletic performance. We recently published a paper that shows if you exercise for 30 minutes, your brain actually has a little bit of protection against emotional insult, so that was pretty exciting. Most recently, I've been collaborating with Julius down there and the same exercise scientists, and we're starting to look at brain health in contact sports athletes, MMA fighters, and football players, and we're really hoping to get some interesting and valuable data on some of those early indicators of brain health in this group.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Charles Golden. I'm professor of clinical neuropsychology at the Maltz building. I think I'm the only clinician doctoral level program here, so unlike the neuroscience department. Oh, you don't count, Rob. You're not real.
I exercised for 30 minutes.
Rob's
Yeah, exactly.
Rob's a former student, and you'll find out someday that you're always a former student once you started out that way. It's hard.
I'm going to need an hour of performance today.
Our performance in order to overdo this negativity, yes. But we started out doing neuropsychology and looking at athletes before you were all born, either good or bad. We started out working with boxers who have obvious, starting initially with what we call pugilistic dementia, but then spreading out to the fact that we came up with the idea that people who didn't have dementia could also have brain injury, that there is not just normal and dementia, there's a whole wide range in between, although the medical profession at the time, just as they did with football at the time, refused to acknowledge that these kinds of things could even exist. So we spent a lot of years being attacked by people telling us that we were total idiots and did not know what we were talking about, which builds up a certain something or other in you. I'm not quite sure what it was. Trying to demonstrate that there were indeed deficits showing in people who boxed, who played sports, that was cumulative over time. We also base this, a lot of work we do with head injury patients. It's what I call my bad driver group. These are people who have 10, 20 accidents and head traumas over a period of time, sort of like playing football, only not quite as much on purpose. And looking at that group, we were able to test and retest them over time and showing the gradual decrease in their ability to function. And that's something that we continue to be very interested in. On campus, the neuropsychology department provides evaluation of college athletes, high school athletes, and professional athletes for possible damage. We also see NFL and other players from teams after their playing days to see the presence of cognitive deficits and disorders. So we have a widespread program trying to look at what kind of individual factors, what kind of sports factors affect these functions, as well as also now a greater interest in how personality is changed by the presence of these kinds of concussions and changes, which generally, again, has been regarded as a separate issue from the issue of cognitive disorders.
Excellent. Is this on? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to continue to work through with some questions. Where is that? Excellent. Now that we introduced everybody, we're going to go on with some questions. We have a nice opportunity to ask Dwight many questions and him to share insight with us today. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on your career and how you got into mental health counseling, and then how you worked within the NFL, and then how you got to your role within athletics as well in collegiate.
How much time we got? That's a big story. That's a long story. But so for those of you who don't know, I was a player with the Miami Dolphins while I was in school here at Nova. So I started the master's degree program shortly after they started calling me the old dude in the locker room. So I was 27, 28. I had played about 4 years in the NFL. Average career is about 2.7. And, you know, I'd walk through the locker room, guys pat me on the back, old man, what's up, old man? And again, 27 or 28, and they're calling you the old dude, you probably should start looking for your next job. So, and that's what hit me. What struck me is that I had already beat the odds as far as the length of time that the typical NFL player plays. And my undergrad work was in psychology. I double majored psychology and speech communications. Initially started thinking I wanted to go into broadcasting. But what I found was if you grow up a really shy kid, speech communications is probably not the field for you. I remember my speech communications class, I would walk out of those classes and I'd be drenched in sweat, like head to toe, big pit stains. I developed a facial tic, like when I was talking, I could feel my cheek jumping. Nobody could see it, but it was driving me out of my mind. I was like, whew, if this is the way it's going to be every time I have to speak or act in a play, which I had to do as part of that degree, and even get on the radio and have conversations, then you know what? I probably should start looking at something else. And so I decided to double major. Psychology just really spoke to me. And I think what really spoke to me about psychology was I grew up in a family where we weren't poor. We were po sometimes, where we couldn't afford the OR. We struggled, but no matter how much we struggled, we always had our door open to others. And that's what I remember most about my childhood is, you know, lights off and all kinds of things, but we always had 3 or 4 other family members living with us. And it was that spirit that stuck with me. So I fast forward. Psychology was my double major. Graduated, was fortunate enough to get drafted to the Miami Dolphins by the great Don Shula, and start my career here playing football. And I use career loosely because NFL is not a career. It's an experience. Career is something that you do for a long time and you retire from. The military is a career. Banking can be a career. Being a professor is a career. Playing football is an experience. You're only going to do that for a short amount of time, and then you're going to need to do something else. So in my experience as an NFL player, I got to that 5th year, and I was doing okay. But we had just had a coaching change, and there were a lot of new guys brought in, and I was the old dude in the locker room. And so came over and I took a course initially, just one course in the springtime, just to see if I could do it, if I could get back into the academic mode, if I can do that and make all my workouts and all my practices and all of that. And I did, and I loved it. And so I dove in and started the program. And the end of the program, you have to do consecutive practicum. You have to do your practicum in consecutive semesters. And so during that season, that 98 season, I was a full-time student and full-time NFL player. and I don't know what I was thinking. I was running from practice. They let me out 15 minutes early, like that was some gift, to go shower quickly and go to class. And I was in class from 4 o'clock to 6:45, and then 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I was worn out. But look, fast forward, got my degree, graduated, played one more season in the NFL, played for the Indianapolis Colts that last season in 2000, got injured and was out of the game, went to work right away. My first job out of the NFL, I was an intensive outpatient therapist for dual diagnosed adjudicated youth. So for those with clinical experience, they know that that's being thrown to the fire of clinicians. You're working with teenagers who have charges against them who were diagnosed with a substance abuse issue and another coexisting mental health issue. And they are not happy about having to go to counseling 4 days a week or 5 days a week. I went on to work as a foster care program manager where I managed 40 plus foster homes. I did placements of foster kids, trainings of foster parents. I was an in-school therapist where I worked with a Title I school, a school with 90% kids who were free and reduced lunch. I did some coaching along the way, coaching high school and working in a high school. And I spent 6 years in private practice, working with abused populations primarily. But I'll go back to my work here and working in the Family Violence Center here on campus really laid a foundation for me and told me where I needed to devote my time with people who were in the midst of a struggle and challenging people with challenges. Because as a black man working in the counseling field, there aren't a whole lot of us, and there aren't a whole lot of opportunities for people to see people that look like them in this space. And it was important for me to be a face, to be someone that they can lean on, to be someone that they can talk to, and to change that perception that people had of athletes. Tell a quick story. My first semester in school at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, I was a first-generation college student, didn't know much about what I was getting myself into, standing in line to sign up for a class, and there was a young lady behind me. And she said, "You know, you're only here because you play football. And if you weren't here, somebody else would be able to come. And you're going to have people do your work for you." And so she's saying all of this to me, and I'm thinking, "You don't know me? Don't be talking to me like that." I was thinking that. I didn't say anything. I was just quiet. Remember, I was a shy guy, too. And in this new experience, and I was like, whoa, that's what they think of football players. And so I made it my mission, and it's been a driving force for me. I wish I knew who it was now, because she's helped propel me forward so far, because it's been my mission not to be put into that box, not to be pigeonholed, not to be that guy. And so when I step into a new role, when I step into a job, when I'm everywhere, every level that I've been on, it's been my mission that I'm more than just an athlete. I'm more than just a football player. And it gets difficult when people that you're counseling are asking you for autographs. You know, you have to have a conversation with them about the relationship. And so it's been a great experience to do that. I love this work. I know how important it is, and especially in working with athletes, because like the rest of the athletes, I did have some of those traits where I was raised in that environment where you were told to suck it up, to brush it off, to get back in there, to push through it. And when you've been told that over and over again, it becomes your way of operating in the world. And so men, in particular, athletes especially, are more likely to resist seeking help. And so seeing someone that has been through it, seeing someone who's also dealt with his own mental health issues, and I have. I went through a bad depression in my transition out of football. And it was really related to the absence of meaning for me, or what I thought. I was so wrapped up in being a football player that I didn't realize I was a pretty good counselor as well. But I was focused on, so here's the deal. I played 9 years in the NFL, beat the odds by a long shot, but I was hung up on only playing 9 years in the NFL. So think about that. I would say, yeah, I only played 9 years in the NFL. And my friends would look at me like, dude, you retarded, you stupid. Why you only played 9 years? 9 years, dude, you played 9 years. And I was like, yeah, I only played 9. I was upset that I didn't play 10, which is ridiculous to think about now. But it's a struggle that I was really dealing with in my emotional connection to the game and who I was without the game. And a lot of people go through that. And it's not just athletes. It's not just athletes. If you've been the best of the best, the 1% of whatever it is that you did, and all of a sudden somebody told you, you can't do that anymore, how are you going to feel? Rarely do guys who play in the NFL get to decide when they can leave, Julius. No, this dude's a special guy. He was able to make that decision himself. But I wasn't. I got injured, and I was pushed out. And I wasn't ready to deal with it, even though I went to work right away. Like, I was working 2 months after I filed for my severance. I jumped into the field right away, but I was a shell of a man in doing that. And I had my struggles, and ultimately the therapist needed therapy. And I did that. And so I say that for a couple of reasons. As clinicians, as future clinicians, it's important to take care of yourself, to make sure that you're, taking the advice that you're given. I think it's also important in working with athletes that you are aware of that challenge, that wall that they may have up about coming and seeing someone and dealing with those issues, because they've been groomed to handle it themselves. So recognizing that and being sensitive to it, I think, is extremely important. And so I'm really, my journey has taken me in a lot of different ways and directions. 5.5 years ago, I got an opportunity to go and work at the NFL, to work with athletes in transition, to work with football players in transition. And it was a perfect fit for me. And I was able to do some pretty cool things in bringing mental health awareness to the NFL. And then just 8 weeks ago, I got an opportunity to return to the university where I did my undergrad and serve as a senior associate athletic director. So the path has been winding. There are a lot of things in there. It's been 18 years since I graduated. And in those 18 years, I feel like I've crunched in a whole bunch of things and did a bunch of different things with a counseling degree. And so I think the world is wide open and ready for people who are willing to serve, people who want to help others. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a counselor that Nova Southeastern University provided me. I couldn't ask for any more for that opportunity and for the way that people mentored me and pointed me in different directions. It's been great, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share with you all. This place is special, and the opportunity is special. So,
well, we appreciate that story. I know we have so many doctoral students out here just waiting to chomp at the bit to help that elite athlete mind to restructure those cognitions and to challenge those beliefs like we just had in class before. But really wonderful insights to the mind of an elite athlete that you often don't find. And that brings me to the opportunity of what we offer at Nova in the doctoral program, where we are working right now with our athletes on campus, where we're doing screenings to look at mental health problems that our athletes have and how to get them to utilize resources and services, which I think is a nice lead-in for Julius to talk about what maybe he's seen through his collegiate career of playing two sports and then his NFL career as well, and then how we got Julius Thomas to be sitting next to me right here today. I think that insight could be wonderful.
Yeah. Does this mic work? Yeah, for me, it was a realization. Like one day, I don't know where it came from, but I realized that I cared more about others than I cared about my own success, and I didn't really know what to do with it. There's no place for an individual with that mindset in what I was doing. It's like, no, you need to score. You need to go make plays. This is what you're here to do. And things really started to kind of make themselves aware to me, and I didn't really know what to do with it. You know, as I started to connect more to who I was and started to understand that I think the peace in life that we're all looking for, it's not available in your paycheck. It's not available in your house, in the car you drive. And I think that most people that grew up how I grew up thought, you know, if I get these things, it was worth it, and my life will be perfect. Everything's great. You know, you grow up, you're a millionaire, whatever, that happens. And it wasn't until I had everything that I ever wanted, just literally, when you write that list down as a kid and then you get to go achieve it and you realize, man, I'm still not where I want to be. Things still aren't good. And then you start to realize that along the way, you developed a lot of habits that are really tough to help you attain that peace. And then I just started studying on my own and started spending a lot of time reading and trying to learn what I can do to kind of make sense of my existential crisis. Like, what's important? And as I did that, I started to notice the suffering in other people. Started to see that, you know, I'm in the huddle and we're in here together and we're family and we're brothers. And we have these words that we use to bring us together and encourage us to sacrifice everything for each other. And that's one thing that football taught me that I hadn't learned in any other sport is, like, maybe not completely, but I'm kind of willing to sacrifice my life for you. Like, I'm putting my actual neck on the line for this 1 yard so that 50, 60,000 people in the stands can cheer, so millions of people at home can be happy. But then when you go home, man, you're struggling. Your relationship with your wife is struggling. You're disconnected from your children. Your future after you leave this field is up in the air and no one cares. People aren't concerned about it. People are saying, hey, look how much you made. You can't have problems. And I started saying, well, what are we doing, man? That's my brother. We're just going to let him step away from the game, and we're not going to do anything for him, or we're going to see that this person is clearly spiraling out of control, but as long as they can run the football, hey, it's okay, man. You're doing exactly what's expected of you. We're all good. And that kind of led me to hanging out with this guy. I was sitting there and I was saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm actually more excited to get up and help people, and I can't do it here. I'm trying to do things for the guys around the building and say, hey, coach, you know what? Hey, JT, stop thinking. You know, stop thinking. Let me tell you what we pay you to do. We pay you to run. We don't pay you to think. That's not why you're here. And I started thinking, like, man, but I like to think. Like, this is learning is fun for me. I'm not able to be who I want to be. And I just reached out and I said, well, I know that Nova has a psychology school. Maybe I'll just send an email and see what happens. And I was able to do that, and I met with Dr. Seif, and we were talking, and he's like, wow, what made you think about all this stuff? Like, you're thinking about this now? Like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm done. Like, this, it's time for me. I got to make a change. I want to do something. I want to be there for people, and he invited me to come in this class, and when I finished the end of the season, I said, that was for sure my last season. Almost ripped this ligament off my big toe. I was like, oh, man, I'm in a boot. Okay, it's something else. And then I actually came to the class, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, wow, everybody's here talking about how to help people. everybody's here putting their time and their energy and their lives into doing what they can to be there for people. And I said, this is what I want to do, and I didn't think that I'd be sitting in this chair today, and I didn't think that I would be applying for the doctoral program last week, but through the people I've met here and the encouragement I've received and just the warm hearts and then just how amazing everybody is, I said, this is where I want to be, and this is what I want to spend my life doing, and this is how I want to do it. So I'm just really looking forward to receiving the training and really learning from some of the great work that everybody here is doing, and making a bunch of new friends in the process, and really collaborating together to try and help people have the quality of life that I think that people need. And just from playing football and being around athletes my whole life, I think there's a lot of them that are suffering in silence. I suffered in silence for a long time. Vulnerability was not an option for me. It was nothing that I was prepared to do. But as I leaned more into that and I understand the power of connecting to people and sharing who I am, it's really helped me transition in a good way. And it's really helped me feel good about who I am and understand that I'm more than just a football player. And my whole life, I've always been looked at athletically. You know, when you walk into a room, it's like, wow, you can do something athletic right now. What are you doing here? When you go to the gas station and people are like, hey, man, what do you do? It's, oh, man, I'm trying to go back to school and get a doctorate in psychology. Well, I think you should be playing football, man. You could go. And it happens all the time. But no, I'm very appreciative, and I'm very thankful, and I feel very blessed for everything that I have, and I just want to help people.
Excellent. I appreciate the insight. I'm sure the guests in the room do as well. We have this panel of such experts in different areas of working with sports performance, athletes themselves, counselors, neuroscience. And I was wondering, what do you all see the future to be when working in our industry in the next 10 to 20 years in regards to mental performance enhancement, neuropsych testing, gender differences in athletes? Kind of put it up to the panel to see who'd like to talk about that.
All right. Well, I guess the future for female athletes, I'll speak mainly to that. I think there's definitely a need for us as counselors and psychologists to work with that population. Just as, you know, Julius and Dwight mentioned, a lot of times these athletes are overlooked. You know, they don't come to counseling. They don't think that they're having other issues or anything that's affecting them. Their main goal a lot of times is their sport performance, and that's what they look at, and that's where their focus is. But they lack to sometimes see that other areas of their lives are also falling apart, and they need some help in those areas. So I think it's really important, and an easy way for us as counselors is to look at these individuals from a wellness perspective. I've always been somebody who's looked at wellness even in clients that come in that are not athletes. But while I worked at the counseling center at the University of Mississippi, I had several athletes come in, males and females, and the first thing out of their mouth would be, you know, I'm an athlete and I don't know if you can connect with me on that level, but I'm struggling with my sport performance, and like, is there anything that you can do to help me? And the more that I looked into it and I broke it down, we came to realize that it was other areas of their life that was actually affecting their sport performance. So we would look at those areas, and a lot of the individuals that I did see happened to be females. So I went and I looked up some research about that, and I saw that there was research out there on female athletes who were struggling in certain areas, such as realistic beliefs. You know, they had this self-worth about them that was really low, and their realistic beliefs, they thought that they should be at, you know, a perfect 10 when a 9.9 might be okay. And so I looked at those different areas, and I saw that there was a bunch of research out there, but none of it was really addressing how we help them. You know, we know that they're lacking in these areas and they're low in these wellness areas, but what do we do about it? And so I actually looked into different sports teams and athletes within the Southeast region, and what I determined was a lot of the wellness workshops and activities that they had to boost these levels of wellness were super long. They were an entire semester or 2 semesters, And as we know about college athletes, they don't have a lot of time. You know, they're practicing constantly. They have to go to study tables. They have everything that a normal college student has, plus all these additional things. And as Dwight was saying, a lot of times they're put on this pedestal as well because of their elite status, and that also affects them psychologically. So what I ended up doing was I created a wellness workshop that was only an hour long that looked at the specific areas in which these female athletes were struggling in. And I conducted that workshop, and it came back to show that it was actually significantly helpful, and it raised their levels of wellness by just looking at realistic beliefs, self-worth, and stress management. And so overall, that impacted their sport performance. And so I think as a future, us as counselors, even if we don't meet with teams as a whole, just if you get a client that comes in that is an athlete, to look at it from a wellness perspective. And not every single one will be struggling with just those 3 issues, but there's 17 overall from the model that I work with. But just looking at that and seeing like what areas that they're struggling with and working on 1 or 2 at a time should be able to boost their overall levels of total wellness and then their sport performance.
That's excellent. Jamie, could you share with us what you and your lab and your students are working on in regard to sports performance and neuroscience?
I should have mentioned earlier, my grad student Dominick is here. He's actually working on the study with us as well. So poor Dom, he's had a hard day. Today, Dom had to draw blood from a professional boxer who could have kicked his butt very easily, and he did it, and he survived it, and we're really happy. So just sort of follow a little bit on what Mindy was saying. I think my perspective, especially for the grad students, would, I guess, not be so much what I'm doing, but what I think we should all be doing a little bit more of, and something that I've learned to do a lot more in the last couple of years, is to kind of move outside of our academic silos with a little bit better ease. And I think as counselors or as clinical psychologists, as neuroscientists, cognitive psychologists, I think we get stuck a little bit in the way that we think, and we don't always communicate very well with people outside of our areas, especially people maybe outside of psychology overall, biologists, geneticists. And I think that what I realize is when you have conversations, if you're treating athletes or you're working with athletes or you're interested in a specific population, you may have background and training in counseling and you know everything there is to know about counseling, but sometimes just having that conversation with somebody from another area can give you so much insight and let you think about things a little bit differently. It's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because that means you often have to go back and read things and start learning all over again. But I guarantee you it's something that I would recommend. I just coincidentally had a couple conversations with one of Charlie's collaborators, Lisa Lashley, who's a clinical psychologist, and we're both doing sort of similar work. But I think like a neuroscientist. I'm trained like a neuroscientist. She's a clinician, and she thinks like a clinician. And I've gained so much from just these hallway conversations that we've had, and it's changed the way I'm thinking about our study. Even I never thought I would be working with a professional athlete, but even working with Julius and trying to figure out, you almost have to be like a 2-year-old and just keep asking why, why is this? Why do you think that way? And some of the assumptions that I had going into the study and some of the assumptions that I had about how people think, because I think biologically, it turns out I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, a lot more than I would like to be. But you kind of have to be open to this idea that other people have other types of expertise that can be really valuable for your clinical setting or your research setting.
Excellent. And Charlie, I was wondering if you could talk a few minutes on the work that you and your students are doing as well.
Sure. What we're trying to do now is to extend our understanding of how brain injury occurs as a result of playing sports or any other violent situation. A lot of what we see are individual characteristics. Some of us are more likely to develop concussions and to keep the impact of those concussions for periods of time, whether that's purely genetic, physiological, or nobody has separated that out. There are people claiming they have identified genes that they think are related to this, but some of you can go out and get head traumas 12 or 15 times and you will be fine afterwards, and some of you the third time you will never function normally again. And you see this in the head trauma research and the like. And it isn't how severe the trauma was. It wasn't how long you were unconscious or any of the obvious factors that medically have traditionally been the way in which we have measured these things. So we are trying to do that. We are trying to look at that in younger people, which is interesting. You guys talked about how athletes focus on performance, with no question. But what's interesting, too, is that when we work with high school and college students, parents also focus on that. So we have parents, we have kids coming in who, for whatever reason, cannot handle head trauma. They develop symptoms. The symptoms continue for weeks or months on end when they should have gone away faster in a normal individual. And the parents will say, well, ignore that. He's got to get back into sports because now he can get into the University of North Carolina, or whatever the case may be, and or play for Nova, or whatever the case may be out there. But it's more important to them that they go back in and play than it is that their health of their brain be maintained over your life, and which I think is a very poor choice. But that's, it depends how much you value your brain. That becomes the real focus here. And so we are trying to figure out how we develop that better, how we identify people who unfortunately shouldn't be putting themselves in these situations versus those who we test a lot of NFL players after retirement. I have tested players who have been through hundreds of concussions and they are totally normal. There is nothing wrong with them whatsoever. And I'm sure Dwight would test out normal, but I don't know how many concussions you had.
Or I gave more than I took.
You gave more than you took. Always the best way. But not for the other people.
So
but,
Charlie,
okay.
I would like to give thanks to Dean Karen Grosby and bring her down to say some words to us as well. Without her help in organizing this panel, this would not have taken place. So I want to introduce Dean Karen Grosby, College of Psychology.
Hi, everybody. So one of the greatest things that occurred today was at noon, where we gave the 2018 Distinguished Alumni Award of the Year to Dwight Hollier. And it was a fantastic ceremony. And I don't think it's lost on any of you the why of it. The heart and soul of him and his work really speaks to the distinguished work that a lot of our alums do after they leave us. So congratulations once again.
Thank you.
And to our distinguished panel and faculty and students all involved in all the aspects of this, from the basic science to the applied science to the clinical practice, counseling and psychology is all part of this. But Dr. Tartar mentioned something very important, which is the interdisciplinary nature of all of this. So it seems not that long ago, but it was long ago when the osteopathic medical school talked with us, talked with the PT, talked with the athletic department, and established the sports medicine clinic, which has full interdisciplinary participation. Very, very important. Now we have Dr. Cipher working closely with athletes, Dr. Golden, Dr. Lashley with concussion, and you heard our panel with lots more to come. So I just wanted to say I'm personally very touched by what I call the heart and soul of psychology and counseling and all that it has to offer our students, our alums, and our community. So thank you all so much. And we do have a little present for you, Dwight. Actually, I don't know if it's for him, right?
Oh,
so that's
nice.
either, so Dwight has a couple of kids, and his wife is a physician. So I'm not sure who that bear's going to, the wife or the kids or to Dwight.
This is my bear. Let's get that straight.
But some of these might be great for your kids. We have shirts, and
Okay.
Just so they know that their dad's a shark.
Ha.
And we
think we
thank you
already knew
so very much for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Gotta love a bear in a hoodie.